We're waiting for Joel.
I don't know where he's at.
He's trying to log on right now.
Oh, he's not logged on?
Oh,
There he
here he is. Here he comes.
Oh, there he is.
Ooh, now we're streaming live.
There you go.
Joel.
We're waiting for Joel.
I don't know where he's at.
Trying to log on right
So
now.
you have to change your name.
Oh, here he is. Here he comes.
Oh, there he is.
Ooh, now we're streaming live.
There you go.
Hey, John, you want to change Joel's name?
Yeah, I got it.
Evening, Tony.
Good evening.
All right. Got everybody? Sorry, John. Did you want to say something?
No problem. I'll let you start your meeting.
No, if you have something, go ahead.
I was just mentioning that the stream started. We're recording.
Awesome.
Well, just go ahead and mute and step out. And if you need something, give me a shout.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. So I'll just go ahead and call the meeting to order. I think we're at 6:01. Nice job. Looks like we've got everyone, and I guess I just need a motion to adopt the agenda. Anyone?
Hey, you're on mute.
So moved.
Second.
All right, by acclamation, unless anyone has any changes to make. Okay. So just, I guess for a little bit of order, we'll just go through the budgets by the managers as we have. If we have questions, I guess we'll probably let them go through, say what they want to say, and then questions at the end, maybe raise hands, and I'll try to keep some order there so that we're not all talking over each other. I guess I just want to go ahead and say that if you guys obviously had a chance to look over this, we are not proposing a dues increase for next year. This draft budget is assuming flat dues for 2021. And Joe or Joel, do you guys have anything that you want to add, or?
Yeah, I'm just going to touch on it real quick. Yeah, we have presented to the Finance Committee a flat budget. We have incorporated not only a flat budget, but we also incorporated the special assessment for parks and recs into this as well. So it will not go up. It will still remain 144.31 for developed lots. We did take some stuff on page 2. If you look where it came from, operations, the collection rate of 95%, up 3% from prior years, down 2% from what we've been the last 2, maybe 3 years on collections. In cost of living increase, the big ones were the insurances. Both of those were 15%. They are assumptions right now, and they could go down. And like I said, we rolled in the 3% recreational special assessment into the current budget. With that being said, we will not have a dues increase for 2021. Again, these are what we are going to present to you guys as Finance Committee. After that, everybody knows the process. It'll go up to the board, and the board can go do what they need from there. But this is a flat budget. Everything is covered. I know some people have concerns that we might be cutting out goods and services. Everything is covered. Everything will be taken care of. Everything will be addressed. So that is a concern that everybody does not need to worry about. Joel?
Can I ask a question, a point of order here?
Sure.
Karen, I was not part of this process last year because I was not in town when we did this process. And I know we have 2 new Finance Committee members this time. So I would appreciate a kind of a perspective of what's the purpose of these 2 meetings? What is our role in this process? And do we have any sense of, or do we have any, I'm not exactly sure. I think we have the responsibility, but I'm not sure that we've been asked to actually somehow support this budget going forward. And I don't know how we influence it. I don't know how that happens, because I don't think we did that last year. So I'm trying to understand what we're doing here, other than I appreciate that we're going through this and we can ask questions and so forth, but I'm looking for, like, what's the bigger context of which these meetings are meant to be from a finance committee perspective.
I'm going to chime in there, Penny. Last year, the Finance Committee did change the budget that was presented to you guys. And I do believe it was Colin who brought it up to increase roads for capital. I believe it was $3.81. Colin, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But the purpose of this is to present to you from the managers the budget for the operation and capital and SURF to the Finance Committee. You guys can talk, change, do whatever you want. This is what the managers are sending to you guys, and they will present it to you guys on their needs for the community going forward.
So just to add a little bit to this and how the process worked last year was these 2 days of manager presentations were them presenting to us. It gave us a chance to kind of understand some of their business, some of the challenges they're facing, some of those things. And we were asked questions, and then at a following finance committee meeting, which will be next week for us, we have an opportunity to make recommendations, changes, or whatever to this budget that then goes to the board. So we review this budget. We have a chance to ask all, just like we would do for like a capital request, we have the opportunity to talk with the managers themselves about it, to ask our questions. And then at a future meeting, we will actually make those recommendations for the budget that will then go to the board. Does that answer your question, Penny?
Yes, pretty much. And hopefully that helps for Lori and Trang as well.
Right. Sorry if you guys were feeling lost in this. So tonight is more of a chance to learn and ask the questions that you have with the managers here. They're the ones closest to it. They're have the best information that we can get. And then we, the finance committee, next week, that's on our agenda to discuss this budget that was presented to us and make any recommendations of changes and recommendations going forward to the board. Did I sum it up pretty well there? Joe, do you have anything else to say?
No, that's about right. Again, on the 17th, you guys will either vote to send this to the board as is, or tell us, well, actually we'll know tomorrow night that we might have to do some tweaking and stuff, but next Wednesday night, you will vote to send whatever budget you guys want to send up. I mean, if there's no changes to this, this will be the budget that we will send to the board.
And Joel, are you going to say a little bit more about the assumptions and why you chose those assumptions? Or Joe, are you going to say more? In particular, I was interested to see why you chose 95% collections versus 92.
Yeah, I'll be saying a little more
Thank you.
when I get a chance.
And then just to add, the board will go through the same process. So in July, the board has 2 nights of budget meetings with the managers. They're going to be so practiced at that point. So they'll present over 2 nights to the board of directors, and then the board of directors has a separate meeting or more if needed. Same with the finance committee. I suppose if we needed more meetings to discuss it and to be comfortable making a recommendation going to the board, we could call those. Then the board will meet to make comments about the budget before it gets finalized and approved. I think that's sometime at the end of August or maybe early September. I think we might have decided on the date, and then it goes to the membership for their vote. So that's kind of the process on this. Anything else? Okay, do we want to just go straight into golf, or did we want to cover some more of these assumptions a little bit?
Well, I
Or
like
the-
what Penny said about the assumptions on the collection rate. Why the difference? And basically, why the difference?
Yeah, I want to go over the high level assumptions that'll save the department manager some times also when they go over their individual budgets. So I'm going to go ahead and, like Tony and Penny have said, I'll just start out with page 2, where these are really the only huge changes going on with the budget. So obviously the first one is the collection rate of 95%. I know in the past, some people voiced some concerns about, so keep in mind when the collection rate is set, say like at 92%, then that effectively raises the dues that people will be charged. And then other people have said in the past, I think rightfully so, that, well, geez, in the past we've historically kind of had like, say like a 97 point something or other % collection rate by year end. Then why are we going with such a low collection rate? And yeah, obviously the rebuttal would be, well, what if we hit a year where the collection rate was really bad? But looking back over what our collection rate has been in that 97%, I think warrants us to go ahead and bump it up to a 95% collection rate, which effectively lowers the amount of dues that each member will have to pay into the system. Like I looked at, so I've calculated the collection rate as of the end of May. So that May gives us our first real good month of data since this COVID-19 stuff has happened. And our collection rate is still holding steady at, well, it's actually gone up a little. And year end, as at the end of March, it was, as I told you last month, it was 93% for the month of March. Now, obviously for April, we kind of skip over that collection rate since we waived dues. So then when we look at May, our collection rate actually edged up to 93.7%. So that's the official collection rate for as of the end of May. So I believe at this point, this warrants us to go ahead and go with a 95% collection rate for 2021. And obviously by the year 2021, a lot of the dust could have settled anyways on this COVID-19 and how it could have impacted the economy. And
Okay.
did
Can
someone
I
have?
ask a question?
Oh, sure.
Sorry. About the collection rate. So the 97.3, is that cumulative through the end of May?
93.7% is cumulative through the end of May. Yes, that's year to date as of the end of May.
So do you know what the May, if you looked at just May, do you know what just May's collection rate was?
Yeah, when you look at just May, so I don't have the number in front of me, but from memory, it was around 89 point something or other %. So it's close to 90% also. So, but in May, so for it to edge up from 93% to 93.1% or 93.7% from March to May means that not only have people paid, approximately, we'll just say approximately 90% in May, but that also means that they are paying back in dues that they have not yet paid from January through April. So we're starting to see more collections coming in that way as well.
Okay.
But that,
Karen, if you recall last year, we had quite a surplus. And one of the reasons for the surplus was because we had set such a low collection rate.
yeah,
And we collected, so much money. The other thing is that the board does not approve this until August. And so we do have some more time to actually look and see what the correct collection rate is going to be going forward until August.
yeah. Because by that time we'll have, June and July in as well to give us even further data.
And
How does our collection rate compare to the same time last year? So how are we tracking versus May 2019? And what was the actual collection rate for the last couple of years? Was it over 97% both years?
yeah, 97.3 or better each year, Colin. And I mean, Tony, you and another member came in my office with Joel and we were discussing, last year's budget, the same thing that Leslie said. So, I mean, you guys kind of got on me a little bit about that, but that's why Joel and I looked at it. And historically, we've been 97 or better the last couple of years.
I don't mind changing it to 95%. I just wanted to get a little more history to it and understanding to it.
Okay, I can tell you, so I just looked at the end of May. it was 96.5%. Year to date, 96.5%.
So we're 3% lower year to date this year versus last year.
That's true. Yes.
Well, I mean, I don't have a problem. Yeah, we've got until August.
Right.
We're kind of making our educated guess right now. We've just
Yeah.
gone through a horrible economic collapse, and we're still almost 94%. You know, we'll have a better idea in a couple months, but there's no problem with starting at 95%.
Right. And obviously, you know, keep in mind this applies to the year 2021. So a lot of dust can settle economically as well going into 2021.
Well, I'm glad to hear your outlook on the 2021 economy. That's good to hear. But what happens if we don't hit 95? Let's say we adopt 95, and let's just say we have 92 for some reason. So then how do we deal with that?
Well, how we would, that's a great question, but because I've thought about that, how we would deal with that would be to constantly monitor, you know, this collection rate. So if it turns out that, say, like, oh, we're pushing like a 94% or so, then we would be in a situation to where we would do some belt tightening, especially from an operations standpoint.
So we would basically cut expenses during 2021 to meet the new forecasted collection rate.
That's right. Yeah, that's the situation that we would be in.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I think that we're going to, but just nice to know, okay, if this does happen, what are we going to do?
Right.
And so,
Colin, it would be just like in years past here where you guys would be put on I'd put the managers and the team on a spending plan, which is most of the managers have gone through that exercise here in the past. So it'd be no different than something that has gone on in the past.
well, based on our history, I think we've got enough information. We should move ahead. I mean, that sounds fine.
Yeah. To keep going forward too, like when these managers start talking, just to save them some time when they get into their individual budgets, basically, you know, the bottom line stuff that has really been changed would be in terms of like for payroll costs. It's like a 3% cost of living increase has just been generically built into every single one of these departmental budgets. 15% increase has been built into insurance rates. Now, so when I did that, I didn't just take 2020 and then just add 15% to that. I looked at each insurance contract. So if insurance contracts, say like ran through June of 2021, I'm only building a 15% increase for that 6 months left in the 2021 timeframe. So it's more conservative, more targeted in a sense. And then 15% increase to health benefits. So how I did that is I looked at what are the health benefit charges right now as we stand, and then 15% increase into those as well, and that'll show up in payroll expenses. Obviously, this 50% increase is just general insurance. This is not health benefits. This is just flat out, you know, like directors and officers insurance, so on and so forth. There's a 3% increase to the recreational special assessment increase. Of course, there's no way around that. That's built into the special assessment. Now, since I had to bump up 3% to the rec special assessment, so I believe just off the top of my head, right now for a developed lot, it's $11.11, I believe, per month. Next year in 2021, it goes to $11.44, I believe, per month. So what I've done is I have decreased the operational budget to make up for that, to keep the dues flat at $144.31 per month for a developed lot. And the same thing for undeveloped lot. And those, quite frankly, those are the main assumptions that I built into this. Anything else has been something that that a department manager has built into their individual budget, or here and there. There have really only been a couple lines where we have shaved some stuff off just a little to ensure that we keep those dues flat for people so they don't see any increase.
Joel, the 3% cost of living, that's included in salaries, correct?
That's correct. Yes, it's included in salaries. And then you would also see like, you know, a corresponding increase to payroll taxes as well.
So when you look at the salaries for the various departments, obviously there are different percentages on the salaries. So there's other things affecting the salaries.
Yeah. So when I did that 3% increase, so what I'm doing is I'm taking a look at exactly what the pay rate is right now as we speak, not what the pay rate was from the 2020 budget, but what the exact pay rate is right now. And then I bumped those up 3% for just a generic cost of living increase. And some of these things, like for example, like I know minimum wage is basically in a sense won't be going up anymore, but like L&I could institute some sort of cost of living type increase, I believe, with that. On page, for example, on page, I hope it's page 4 in your packet, where this is talking about 2021 dues proposal, where it's breaking down developed lots and undeveloped lots. Is that, hopefully that's the same page that you're looking at?
Yes.
But here's where you can see, like, for example, operations, the very first line, you know, set at 95% collection. 2020 was, right now as we stand, it's $59.30 per developed lot. 2021, I've reduced that to $58.97 to make up for the increase in the operations special assessment, to give us a monthly total of no change, $144.31 for developed lots, and then for undeveloped lots, no change of $134.67 from 2020 to 2021. And down below, you'll see based on 95% collections on a total of 3,138 lots. That's the most up-to-date lot count right now as we have. So that basically means, you know, like the vacant lots has dropped as some vacant lots become developed, or as some people combine lots. So that reflects the difference in the lots right there from the year before that. And then another, I think, important thing is if you turn to page 5, this is where you're seeing a dues projection, 2021 budget assumptions, reserve study from 2025 to 2029. But basically what this is doing is just a quick high level overview. The 2020 assessments is set. It has to be set all the way across. The operations, then if we bump down to, we'll look at the rec special assessment, you'll see from 2020 to 2023 how that builds up 3% as that special assessment is, as that is stated. The operations, the line above that, 3%, that is just, this is just a formula in the spreadsheet. I've decided to keep it. It's just building in a 3% increase on operations from 2022 through 2029. And then I already talked about the line before that, rec special assessment. The line below that, the recreation, you'll see in 2024 where it says $12.14. This is, in a sense, this is something that you guys, you know, as a finance committee, as a board would have to decide in the future whether or not you want to continue on with this it's kind of like you're picking up after the special assessment, but this would be a vote all on your own at that point forward at 12.14, then it extends out at 3%. When you get down into the surf and the roads, basically you'll see that 3610 special assessment, that's just stretched right across all the years. Then you'll see the surf additional assessment below that. You'll see how it picks up in 2022. There's an amount, and that spreads forward to 2029. I'll just remember that kind of that term. I'll come back to that. And roads, it's the same sort of thing, 3713 that stretches across. Additional assessment, that line below that, 2022, 578 that picks up, and then it starts stretching across. Basically what this means for the additional assessments for roads and surf, that's assuming on a fully funded basis that in each one of those years that whatever is hitting that surf spending plan or road spending plan, that you intend to pay for the whole darn thing in cash. It'll be fully funded. So that surf additional assessment or roads additional assessment, that's how much additional you'd have to kick into those dues to make up for that if you want to pay for all that stuff in cash. Now, keep in mind, if you have anything, say like in the SERP plan or the roads plan in 2021, whenever you kick something from one year to the next, or you want to pull something back from, say, 2028 to 2023, then all of those things would change in correspondence with that. If we go down below into that kind of that additional table where it says additional special assessment, you'll see out there in 2029, you'll see these two amounts in the gray shaded regions, 332.54 for SURF, 8301 for roads, and you'll see C notes, basically the notes. These are those major items that we have decided to move from various years to 2029 for long range planning purposes. Since at this point, we're not quite certain what exactly is going to be done with those, and if what is done with them, what is going to be done in which year. So it's just been kicked into 2029. Now, when something moves, say it's from one year to the next, from 2024 to 2029, it's not just the flat dollar amount that goes. So I'll just make up a number. Something's $1 million in 2024, and then you move it to 2029. We don't just take $1 million from 2024 and then plug $1 million into 2029 on the SERP plan or ROSE plan. It gets that escalation to it, that 2.5% escalation per year, according to the reserve study type calculations.
Question on
Sure.
the additional assessment on under SERF, where you show $64.17. Does that include the new buildings and renovations of the existing buildings, or is it additional assessment for equipment and stuff like that?
So this is going to include, if I flip through like to the very end of your booklet, I hope for you it starts on page 61 with the SERF capital plan. Basically, this lists out by year all the different SERF type capital projects or items that is currently scheduled to be spent during those years. So like these amounts are what's going into that calculation.
So is that 2029 figure, including that includes the barn 8?
So no, actually the barn 8 is down below in that additional special assessment where it says C notes. It's actually that very first note 1.
So these are the $64 is everything except barn 8, the maintenance building and renovation of the clubhouse.
That's right. Yes, that's right. So it's everything except for what's in the notes section that applies to SERF down below, which would be everything from note 1 to note 3 is what that is. That's what's making up that 332.54 in that shaded region for SERF.
So I'm going to follow on from Tony. The question that I had about that is what aspects of those buildings or the parking lot, for instance, there's 3 buildings and the marina parking lot as well. So what aspects of that, of maintenance of those, are in your SERF in the above the special assessment area?
So now we have some things like worked in for, Joe, you might be able to respond in terms of like things that.
Joe, you're on mute.
Penny, what we're doing is we're working on getting those added back into the SERF. I'm getting some pricing for roofs and windows and siding for barn 8. As far as all the other stuff, we're just going to add those items that were taken out or removed or moved somewhere else back into that. So those numbers might change. And if you look across that, there are some years where it goes down a little bit. The goal, and this would be my goal in finance, and the board can always change that, is work on trying to keep a level dues increase or dues for as long as we possibly can. And juggle some of these projects around and add them in where we can, so we don't have these big spikes up or big spikes down. Just trying to work on getting those done so everybody has a real good idea of over the next 8-9 years where you're going to fall. So I don't know, and Penny, I don't know why. I think you and Tony could probably give me a little bit better idea why some of those items were taken out and just wrapped into a new building.
You can't have a new building and keep if we decided to keep the new building, we didn't want to keep all the maintenance stuff in the building.
But I get that, but
completed.
why didn't, I'm trying to figure that out, why they were not kind of grouped the same way. We just grouped everything at the end and had them there so that we had those numbers. And I guess that's my question to you guys who have been on the finance committee longer.
Joe, are you saying you don't?
We're gonna get those. Right now I have.
We're gonna start over.
I'm gonna start getting some pricing for HVAC, roofs, siding, windows, all of that, all the component parts that were taken out. We're gonna have to get some new numbers. And then
well, you have the prior component parts on the prior reserve studies that you can start with and move from that point, because they have the scheduled dates for all the maintenance requirements. Prior to us deciding this, we were going to take everything out. So you do have a reserve study showing all those items that you could start out with and show the years that they were supposed to be scheduled to be completed.
Joel, do you have that?
Yeah,
I have it.
we do have.
Hey, Tony, if you have it, how about you drop it off to the office so we can have it?
Well, I got, this has been a long time since we had it, but Joel, do you have a copy of the reserve studies back then?
Sure. What year?
It was the last 2 or 3 years.
Oh, yeah, yeah, we have had copies. And like, for example, because I see on the SERP plan here, like there is barn aid emergency repairs for approximately 53,000 or so from 2020 to 2022. Were you alluding to some of those?
No.
No.
I.e. windows, roofs, HVAC, electrical,
Siding.
siding.
We took those all out at the time. I think this was when Jennifer was still here. When we took those all out at the time, we decided that we were going to look at building. We didn't want to invest any more funds into Barn 8 and the maintenance building. So we took all those maintenance items out and calculated the potential what the new buildings were going to cost was this amount and this amount. So to me, I'm scared of looking at this budget, and if this is public record showing the assessments from now to 2029, seems doing a couple of years here going down versus staying as is. I would hate to see this. I really do. I think it's misleading.
Well, I don't know why you took them out then, Tony.
I think that one of the issues was that when all of the maintenance items were in there, the numbers for them wasn't realistic. And I'd like to see Joe looking at getting some realistic numbers. How much is it really going to cost to put a new roof on that? And maybe with some contingencies for things, issues that we find. New siding. Now, we know that we're probably not going to just do siding. You're going to find real issues when you take the old skin off and try to replace it. So I want to see how much is it really going to cost to keep this building or Barn 8 maintained over the next several years. And I think that will tell a different story than just plugging in the canned numbers that you get from a reserve study.
And those numbers are being researched as we speak.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that. We can talk a whole lot about what was in the reserve study and what's moving around, but I think what we really need to get to is what are the real numbers and what are we actually going to do? A little bit of history that I seem to recall is that there was the report from Wilson, I think it was from 2016 or 17, that said that it would be more expensive to repair the building than replace, and based on that information, the decision was made by the finance committee, like Tony said, to not continue to invest in it. And so
that was a recommendation to the board from the finance committee. The finance committee didn't decide anything.
You are right. I apologize for saying that the finance committee recommended. And so that was the thought going forward for a while. And now I'm feeling there's a sense that everyone, like, let's hold on and reevaluate that. And if that really is the best path forward. And so now here we are kind of caught in this, again, I'll say it, a circular reference with the reserve study and what do we put in and what do we not, but what we really need are accurate numbers and the real plan. And that'll give us better projections going forward. And Tony, real quick, just for your comment, I mean, we have this projection going forward, but all we can talk about is what, I mean, we can look at it, but all we can really make recommendations for is the 1 year. This is just based on the reserve study and the calculation that it works, how those are. But obviously we are going to each year look at the budget and look at what makes sense for that year, and not just based on, a projection that was just kind of how the calculations worked out.
I totally understand that. And I totally understand that we're basing the budget on 2021. And I don't have any problems with the budget for 2021. What I do have a problem with is this document showing everything's going to be done effective 2029. We put it as placeholders in 2029. That's 9 years. And realistically, anybody who looks at this and say, how can these buildings last for 9 more years? Even though this is a placeholder, this is for me, it's unrealistic.
First of all, Tony, that is just a year we moved them out. Anything of those 4 projects will be voted on by the community. Okay, I needed to keep them in there to show what that cost was going to be. You know that as well as I do. I have to show that cost. We are not saying that those are all going to be done in 2029. They might, long range planning committee might say, hey, we're going to do something in 2024. We don't know that yet. And they will be special assessments voted on by the community.
I think if you document it in the notes, I wouldn't have any problems with that, saying that these projects could be done between now 2021 and 2029, depending upon what the long range planning committee has.
If you read the notes, Tony, it says number 1, barn 8, replacement, asset number 1332, move to year 2029 to accommodate long-range planning conditions for this item.
But I agree with Tony, it's an insufficient comment in the bottom of the page. So it's great that that's the date, and I don't know why you picked 2029. That's a question that I have. But that's fine that you make those kind of assumptions. But I think from a public record perspective, I think there needs to be more said in that regard to make sure that we understand what it is and what it isn't in supporting what the needs of the organization are.
This document is it's very clear to someone who understands it and reads the footnotes at the bottom of it, but it's the kind of thing that got us in trouble last year.
Yeah.
And people draw conclusions from it that are going to cause us more problems. It makes it look like SURF is overfunded in 2025, which we know it's not anywhere close to being funded in 2025. If you add up the cumulative from 2025 through 2029, you still have an additional assessment need. So it would be great if we could, at a minimum, smooth that out. So we, show that there's an additional assessment that's going to be needed every single year for an accurate dues projection. I mean, I get that, we're not going to decrease it by $18 and $24 and $12, then hit everybody with a $64 assessment in 2029. So it's more, there's a more accurate disclosure that would be less confusing to the community and more accurate to what we're going to be looking at.
I like to, I don't know if we can forward this to our actual finance meeting, because we have all these managers waiting for us to do their presentation. I thought this meeting was just about them presenting to us, so then we can continue discussing and asking questions in detail. I mean, we spent like 30 minutes on Barn 8 already, and none of the managers have anything to say yet. So can we table it maybe until we hear some more information? Because I would like to hear what they have to say first too.
That's a good idea.
Great, let's go.
I just want to say that I think that this conversation has been a useful conversation because it puts the whole budget in perspective. So I didn't find this, I apologize that we've taken the time of the managers to do this, but this is a conversation that we needed to have relative to ground ourselves into what we are going to hear from the managers and the implications thereof. So I disagree with you, Trang, that this has been a waste of time.
I totally agree with that too.
And by the way, I'll say again, it's sitting in, yes, it is sitting in 2029 right now for planning purposes or long range planning purposes. But whether you move it to say 2027 or 2024, it still moves it mathematically. So it's not like, meaning it's like pushing out a bubble. It just comes up somewhere else. So it just comes, the bottom line is you would need to come to a decision of when you actually want to do these things. And then if you want to move it back, then it pulls it back by the 2.5 escalation amount, or it pushes it forward by the same amount in any given year.
The last word for me is that you have to demonstrate that to the public and show that to the public, so the members, so they understand what's going on and why the future budgets are changing. And I don't think we have done that yet and clarified enough for that yet. And with that, I'm done. We can go on to the managers.
Sure, yeah.
Just, sorry, one last thing for me. Just average out the additional assessment from 2025 through 2029, make it smooth, even, well, start at 2023 if you want. And that's way more helpful for the Sudden Valley residents.
Yeah, you would just have to decide where you want it to go, like what year you want it to land and to see how it's going to change the actual special
2023.
assessment.
2023.
Okay, well, I mean, it'll still be additional assessment. It just won't be as much like in that year. It's because of that 2.5 escalation that you're saving yourself from 2029 to 2023. In the end, I'll put it wherever you want it to go.
Colin, you weren't saying to move the special assessment, the additional special assessment to 2023, were you?
No, the additional assessment for SURF that goes negative in 2025, 2026, 2027, and then jumps back up to $64 per month in 2029.
Right.
Whole period
So-
and smooth it out.
Colin,
Yeah.
but that's actually pulling from in the very back, the SURF detail. It's pulling from that. So based on all the projects that are listed out of there, Joel, tell me if I'm wrong about this, but it's actually based on the accumulation of all these projects. So in order to do that, you'd have to actually go through the process of moving projects around to get it to flatten out.
Yeah, that's exactly right, because every single year leads into another year. So like whatever you had left over at the end of 2023 for, say, like SURF, then becomes the starting point for 2024 for funds, then dues, and all the stuff you add on to it. Then it subtracts other projects out of it. So
I get that.
it would just be
different. It's just a different formula on this sheet right here after it's already calculated it. I mean, instead of it pulling from those other spreadsheets, just have it recalculate that row based on the cumulative from these years.
It just, like I said, it just comes down to you would have to move projects from one to the other to it just wherever you want to move stuff, it'll recalculate.
So we'll have a chance to talk about this more when we get to capital. So let's go ahead and move on to the managers, because we will go through a detail.
I think we need to make sure that Joel knows it, and that's fine. We can move on to that, but we need, if we're going to move this conversation to the 17th, we need to make sure that Joel knows the direction that we want him to go in relative to that. So if you want to do that at the end of this conversation, after the managers are done, that's fine. But I don't want to sit there on the 17th of June and be sitting there having this same conversation with no different data.
No, we have a discussion tomorrow about capital, this SURF fund. So it's on the agenda for tomorrow, where we'll be going more in detail on the detail of it, which is what's leading up to, it's the calculation of SURF and roads and that assessment that's going to lead this driving those numbers on that sheet on the front, so we can go into a little bit more detail about how that's presented when we talk about capitals tomorrow. Is that okay?
Was that to me?
Well, I mean, I think this is mostly related to how the capital is impacting that.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I
fine.
mean,
Let's move on.
But like I said, Tony, like I myself won't just take a project and move it from, say, like 2025 to 2023 because I don't know when someone would actually want to work on something in a particular year. It would come down to like you guys or whoever is planning these projects. If they think, oh yeah, this could actually be done in a prior year, this should go to another year. So I would need to know when someone would want something moved.
Well, we could talk about this later, Joel, but we can look at the last reserve study before we moved everything, all the items out, and then at least we'll be able to see the items that were scheduled for what year. The dollar amounts may be wrong, but at least they've scheduled them out. But
Okay.
let's talk about that. We can talk about this tomorrow because that's on SURF.
Yeah, right.
Who's up? Golf?
Yeah, I think Brian wanted to talk about surf coming.
Hey, I'm a property owner and very interested in what happens with surf, so I'm okay. But I can certainly dig into golf if you guys want me to dig into golf a little bit. So we can start off on the revenue side. In general, even though we kind of started this process in May when we were in the middle of a shutdown and not feeling too bullish about revenue this year, but I still remain pretty optimistic about revenue going forward. So I did forecast a fairly significant increase for 2021 based on the fact that we had been at a pretty strong clip in terms of rebooking our outings. The big increase in outings we had in 2019, we showed pretty strong rebooking for 2020, although many of those that's changed, but I still am optimistic about our opportunity to recapture those outings and actually continue to grow the outing program in 2021. So you'll see fairly significant increase in my projection for daily green fees, which is where outing green fees end up going. And then also all signs are pretty positive on the direction of our membership growth. Although again, this year, the caveat there being that our Canadian members are not getting access to the golf course, and even though some have joined, we are going to credit them next year for their memberships, assuming that this border closure stays. So that will have a small impact, but I'm still fairly confident that we'll be able to show continued growth on the membership side, which is the $41.50 annual green fee line. So that's kind of led me to throw out a pretty optimistic increase in revenue. And then not in terms of expenses, not really much in the way it changes. As Joel mentioned, the 3% increase on the salary side, which is no additional hours, but just cost of living and raises, merit increases. So overall, we end up with some we end up with some increases, obviously, the payroll benefit side, insurance side. So overall on the golf side, about just under 11% increase, sorry, just under 5% increase on the overall expense side. The bottom line in terms of projection for profit and loss, and Jake will go into his, he'll detail his side, which is just expenses in a second, but projecting a $25,000 loss in 2021, as opposed to the $66,000 loss that we projected this year.
Brian, can I ask a question? Oops, sorry.
Yeah, I think maybe Lori had a question as well also,
Okay,
but
go
Lori,
ahead.
looks like you might be muted.
Yeah,
Oh, there you go.
I'm muted now.
Yeah.
What page are you on? I can't find
I'm
anything
sorry.
that you were just talking about.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I just I'm on the golf.
Page 24.
24.
Oh,
Thank you.
sorry about that, Lori. I did all that yakking.
It's all right.
Sorry about that.
So I have a question if Lori,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
okay. Being that this year is kind of an unusual year as it is, and you're projected to end the year 280 when the budget was for 208, are we kind of stretching ourselves too much in 2021 by even giving ourselves an extra 10% since we didn't even make, I mean, in 2019, you had 309 and now, I mean, that's for the green fee, sorry.
Oh, for the membership, on the membership side?
Yeah, on the income side. As far as, I mean, you're estimating or forecasting a 10% increase on the green fee as well as the daily green fee, that 10%. And I don't know if you're I mean, based on 2019, we can just forget about 2020 because that's just been an unusual year.
Yeah, no,
That's a huge increase because
I think, yeah, I think what the projections here show 280 and we did 3, yeah. So it is a significant increase, but I think if you look at the increase from 2019 actuals, a couple things that we're seeing is we are seeing a lot. If you look at kind of the pattern that we were on from 2016, and this we're on a pretty strong pattern of growth. We are we've been adding 3 to 10% increases in the membership rates on an annual basis, and we're increasing numbers. And then we're seeing good backfill of our members. You know, there's a level of attrition every year in members. People age out of golf membership, but we are seeing over the last couple of years younger people coming in and backfilling that attrition at a pretty good rate. So I think that you could be correct. That might be overly aggressive, that number of 340 for next year. And
I just don't want you to put yourself so far out, you know, with expenses going up too, and all, you know, it associates that to get a target that's more achievable and more reasonable. It seems to be better for you to do your expenses versus something that may not be achievable. Then
Hey, Trang, what columns are you comparing?
I'm just looking at 2019. I mean, just for all the years compare, but mostly from 2019 because 2020 it's I mean, we can't predict what that's going to be.
Now that 2020-19 actual column, that's year to date. When you're looking at that 2020 year to date actual column, that is only through April 30.
Oh.
Well,
But
I thought you were talking about
I
thought you were looking at the projected though, weren't you, Trang?
Yeah, and let me talk about that projected column too.
Yeah, that'd be good.
This projected column can be extremely confusing, and I almost think just even forget this column because this is exactly what this projected column is doing. This is what C3 does. There's kind of really no way around this, but basically, I'll just make a number. Let's just say we have a budget line item that's $1,200 for the year. So, and then let's say at the end of April, because I'll just use April, let's say it was a bill that comes in at the beginning of the year. So now you have a $1,200 expense because you already got it in April. Well, what this projected column is doing is it's looking at your budget and it's saying, oh, okay, $1,200 divided by 12 months is $100 per month. So then it thinks you have $800 more to go and it tacks that on to your $1,200 expense. So this can really kind of skew things a little in a sense. Because the projected column is looking at the budget year to date, dividing it by however many months it's set to spread those expenses. And
yeah,
it's
but the
tacking on.
2019 actual is the actual date that it ended, right?
Yes, 2019 actual is 12/31/2019 year to date actual.
Okay, because that was what I was comparing. I wasn't even looking at the 2020 projected because I know this is an unusual year to look at.
Yeah. Well,
I just didn't know if it's because it's such a huge increase that we did in 2018 to use 2019 as a baseline to do another 10% increase to that seems aggressive is what I was looking at.
So what you should really look at the 2019 actual, which is 309,000. And
I
look,
think that's what she's looking at.
yeah,
I am looking at that.
And then if you look at it compared to the 2020 budget, which is 308,000 or so. So that's really not too far off of what the actual 2020 budgeted amount is.
Yeah, but we're looking at 2021 budget. That's
Right.
what we're working on right now. And 340, I think, or is it 349? I crossed it
Yeah,
out.
I think
40,100.
I do think it's a fair point that's an aggressive number. I think in general, I guess I see us continuing on this path of overall growth. Trang, if you look at our bottom line revenue, you know, over the past from 2016 through 2019, we're seeing pretty strong growth. So I'm glad that golf is growing and I'm very happy for it because that is one of our biggest as far as
comments from the community about, expenses and operations. So I'm glad that it's on its own, but I just don't want to set yourself up in a situation where
It's fair.
it's not achievable. I mean, growth is great. 5%, 8%, it's great. 10% might be a little bit
Well,
aggressive,
like,
but that's just my opinion. And that's,
I think it's a good, I think it's a good discussion. I mean, I think it's super fair. It's a super fair point.
I
And
think a lot of
and
time
good discussion.
when you bring this back to the community, as far as what golf represents, they like to see that golf can handle on its own. So not that it can't produce. So if you set yourself up at 10%, they expect you to get that 10%. So
Yeah,
in a way, I feel like if you set your standards or your income expectation too high, and when you don't achieve that, you're going to get some questions.
Yeah, now, but to put it in perspective, like between the 2018 actual to 2019 actual went up close to 14% for total golf income.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, but it's
like
fair.
a comment. I mean,
Yeah.
is your budget what you think is achievable? But that's something that I kind of noticed when I looked at it. If you
And I think that's fair, and I'm happy to take some direction from the finance committee if they, want to. They think that'd be better off to forecast revenue more conservatively.
Ryan, are there any anticipated increases in green fees, membership fees and outside green fees?
I'd say based on history, Tony, that there would be. We have typically, like I mentioned earlier, 3 to 10% has been our pattern for the last several years, and the market seems to be bearing it well. Could you make an argument that after this year there might be some challenges with disposable income and perhaps increase in the rate structure might be more challenging? I think you could make that argument, but we haven't seen that. We haven't seen resistance to the increase in the last couple of years. We did, on another kind of different note that added a little bit to my optimism, was the fact that one of our competitor golf courses in Mount Vernon, Eaglemont, closed, and we are seeing positive impact from that. We've attracted several members from Eaglemont so far this year, and seeing some daily play from there as well. So that's one more factor that added to my optimistic forecast.
So when you did the budget, you recognized that there were going to be increases in fees, and that's
Correct.
you took into account with those numbers, but you have it down here, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
A question on the salary line there, 5,300. How many FTEs does that include?
I can answer that question.
Thank you.
So what I'm doing is I'm flipping back to the page basically before the SURF stuff. And there's a 2021 proposed draft budget FTE count, which compares the proposed draft 2021 to the 2020 budget. And for golf enterprise and golf turf, it's totally flat, 12.81 FTEs 2021, 12.81 FTEs in 2020, and 12.82 in 2019. So no change in FTEs.
Okay.
Jake, do you want to discuss turf care? Unless there are more questions, sorry for me, before Jake jumps in.
Brian, I have a question. Just it's about $8,000, and it seems like a pretty large increase. And I don't understand why the budget was so different in 2020. It looked like it was kind of out of line, and that is the dues and subscriptions.
Yeah, there was a big. I didn't get 20. Let's see, 2020 budgeted. Let's see, where was the 2020 budget? I didn't get 2020 budgeted accurately due to an increase. So the bulk of that is the fee that we pay to the Washington Golf Association for our members. We pay a membership fee to the Washington State Golf Association for every one of our members. So two factors happened there that caught me a little off guard. Was an increase in the rate that the WSGA charged, and we had a big increase in memberships as well. So I was out of my number was poorly forecasted.
And by the way, Penny, if you look at the 2019 actual column for that line item, you'll see it's really darn close to what he budgeted for.
I know, that was my point. I was like, why was 2020 so different? Because it looked like not only 2018 and 2019 are at that same level, so.
I forecasted that poorly.
Okay, no worries, just.
So on that same line, just a few blocks down, advertising costs, what are we advertising on, or?
So that's another one I need to do a little research into, in terms of there's some GL classifications, because I think we might be off and for 2019 classifications, and I need to dig into that. But so we have the bulk of our advertising is on Comcast. We have a TV commercial that we run on Comcast.
I've never seen one.
Yeah. And then, but I do it, Trang, I do it exclusively. If you'd have to watch golf broadcasts.
Oh, well, there you go.
So,
that's probably why.
So I do, since the budget's limited, I do make a pretty strong effort to make it very targeted to golf specific audiences. The stuff that's broader is more expensive, and while you hit way more numbers in terms of eyeballs, your odds of getting golfers are much lower. So I've kind of chosen to go very targeted with our.
Did you get a deal in 2019? Is that why it's half what it is for 2020?
I was able to get some trade with a magazine. Did some magazine trade, but I also am a little concerned that there might be a misclassification there too. I need to get with Joel and look at some detail. I might have a misclassification somewhere, but I do spend about I spend about $5,000 with Comcast, and then we have some associations, some Chamber of Commerce membership, some Bellingham Visitors Bureau membership, a couple others that we classify those memberships into advertising as well. So it's possible I have some.
I just don't know if we had an increase or decrease in advertisement, considering 2019 was our best year, but we spent less on advertising.
Yeah, it's. I'm certain that I will spend that in 2020 I will spend the 10,000, and then in 2021 I will almost certainly spend unless I am fortunate and I'm able to get some trade. Every once in a while we're able to trade with the radio station. I do some work with the radio station, and we're able to do some trade there as well. So I do try and trade some advertising for green fees when possible.
And in 2018, I see he's also spent close to 10,000 as well.
Right, I just didn't, because 2019 was the big year that the membership and all that was great, but the advertisement or marketing for it was less. So that was kind of
a little bit of an anomaly there.
Yeah. And then also on maintenance and landscaping, I don't know if this is for you or to Jacob, for the vehicle fuel, shouldn't that be less since fuel cost is so much less now?
Let's see, fuel.
Sorry, page 26. Item
golf. I believe that's golf carts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that probably not.
Yeah. So we kind of, it's hard to forecast fuel prices, and they're so seasonal. So we're buying almost all of our fuel. Well, the bulk of our fuel is going to be April through September, and so even though prices are low right now, it's a little risky to
so
budget.
You're predicting almost a 17% increase from 2020's budget. Is that
$1,000? It's $1,000.
The
So
2019 actual is also close to.
Oh, sorry, that 1,000 more.
Yeah.
Are you basing it on 2019?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What is the other supply? I hate it when people go down other, because I don't know what others are.
Oh, so other supply. It's a lot of little things. An example of like, say, trophies for some of the golf club events, our golf club appreciation board.
Okay. You don't have to list it all. I just wanted to know.
Yeah, it's
a lot of these things they're putting other and they're grouped into like other and like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. So you guys want to hear from Jake now?
Good evening, all. My name is Jake Close, and golf course superintendent. I'll be going over the turf care budget that ties into into golf operations. So that starts on page 46. I assume everyone can hear me okay. So very few of the GL lines have changed. And most of those correspond with costs that over the last few years have differed from our budgeting. One of the main ones there on the first page is our uniform cost, and that includes PPE for our employees. And what's really driven that cost in the last few years is employee turnover, both seasonal and full-time. So that is, if the job market changes next year in our favor, that could, we could see a savings there, but that's more based off the last couple of years of having some high costs there due to there's a lot of people moving from job to job. Coming down a little bit, there's obviously the small change in payroll taxes, and then the benefits cost increase for next year. Coming down then to page 47. And there's a few savings here which are minor in percentage, but due to the GL line item, they're actually significant. Some of the savings in equipment R&M will be due to a capital lease of vehicles that should save us some cost there. And also savings from having to purchase less parts for our the irrigation system, which was renovated. It was finishing up right now. And there again, vehicle fuel is a hard one to forecast. We'd seen very low prices in the last couple of months, and then they've already started climbing. And it's just very volatile. And but we don't, obviously, if we use we pay less for fuel, it is a savings to Sudden Valley. It doesn't get used somewhere else for other budget items. And there's also a reduction in professional services, and usually that went for service of irrigation components that required an electrician. And as we've replaced those components, we're forecasting at least 9 savings there. So honestly, not a huge amount of change from the budget this year, covering all the same items, but accounting for some costs going up, some costs going down, or reduction in what we think we're going to have to spend due to capital spending in the last few years. And with that, I'm open to any questions people might have.
I'm going to ask you if they can ask Brian.
Mhm.
What is the other supply?
So yeah,
6795. Just give me an example of a few other supplies so I can get an idea of why it costs $13,400.
yes, that's other supplies that we use in maintaining the golf course, such as things that don't qualify as a small tool, but might be equipment, such as marking paint. We mark the hazards on the golf course, marking stakes, odds and ends of that kind that add up in an operation of our size. Yeah, I could get you actual GL detail, but it's a lot of screws to repair the matting on bridges as where golfers walk across for non-slip.
So why wouldn't they be classified in the material or equipment R&M section instead of other?
So equipment R&M ties to items. The equipment R&M, which is 6675, I believe. So that is equipment R&M that refers to moving equipment, mowers, and utility vehicles. So that this would be items that are used for repairs that aren't tied to equipment. And the equipment is on a capital on the CRRF, the items that we are using are repairs to things that generally aren't on the CRRF capital
Something
replacement
like
plan.
Trang, and I know for me, I know I just thought of something else. Signage for me goes into other supplies. I bet you for Jacob, I'm assuming signage would go in there as well.
Yep, signage. Yeah, there's numerous little things that go into there. And years ago, we did have more GL categories, years and years and years ago, but it created reports that were for all the departments that were far exceeded what people wanted to see. But yeah, those are some of the
I don't
items.
need to know the details by numbers and lines. I just like to kind of get an overall view. If it's for equipment like that, it should be under small tools and equipment, then we understand what that is. But when it's listed as
Right.
other, and it's over 10,000 each year or 13,000, it just makes
Yeah.
me want to know what are the others.
Well, like I said, it's marking paint, it's stakes for marking hazards, screws for repairing the mats on the bridges, signage.
Driving range supplies, Jake?
Oh yeah, the driving range.
Driving range
Yeah,
supplies,
I mean there's just multiple supplies where if you had to kind of categorize it out, you'd add probably 5 or 10 GLs. So
Joel could probably print you up a report that has all the transactions.
I want no, it's just,
Yeah, I can
I
do
am new
reports
to
that
this
show
whole
you everything
committee
that
and I'm
goes
new
in
to
there.
the budget, but
yeah,
I like to know what, each of these lines mean. And if it's a big amount, I
Yeah.
don't want to question
Well,
it.
that's fine. I
Yeah.
wasn't
free.
joking. I mean, he could,
No.
Yeah.
you could see the vendor and the description and you'd have a better idea. I mean, that's not hard.
Yeah, that's not out of line.
yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, Trang, so whenever you see a category like that, other supplies, that just means we're putting stuff in there that in and of itself just doesn't warrant a general ledger for itself. It's just small things that add up to that.
And
So
I figure that. I do the same thing with my expenses. There's other, but I just wanted to get, I'm not going to hit on every single other, but I like to know, I mean, if it's a big significant amount, what it was that we put it, we spent on. And why we're budgeting it, and why not make a category of its own if it's this amount every year.
You got everything. I mean, you've got it's hundreds of items. Sticks, flags on the golf course, some consumables, that aren't raw materials.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Jacob, do you recall how much in operations, like repairs type savings there was due to give us a number from the capital purchase we've made? I know we went over this when you were presented for capital, but how much did we actually take out of the budget for that for 2021?
Let me look at the line items here. Because we had talked, I think, conservatively on the equipment lease of hoping to see, 3 to 4, maybe even higher, 4,000 in reduction in parts repair. Let me find that GL here.
Jake, his equipment R&M was 2,000. Yeah, that looks like that's down from 2019 actuals.
Yeah, and you can see projected where we're at, but for this year, but there was a reduction. Well, in the equipment R&M, there's a reduction of 1,000 there, which I thought I'd done that a little bit higher. But my hopes is that we would achieve about 3,000 to 4,000. Now, the one caveat to that is we have some items for CRRF for 2021 that we've pushed, and so you have to take those hand in hand. And there's some cost savings we've achieved by buying new equipment. There's also things we're looking at putting out.
And also, Jake, if you looked at the actual on equipment R&M for 2019 being at 46.7, you've projected 43, And
Oh,
had we
there
not
it is,
got-
yeah.
And had we not got the equipment, it would have certainly been well higher than the
Yeah.
46.7, Karen. So that with maintaining the older
That's
equipment,
true.
there's unquestionably would have gone higher than 46.7. So
Yeah, it's a good point. We were budgeted. I was looking at just the straight budgeted numbers. Our
yeah, look at the
Brian
actual.
brings up a good point. Our actuals for what we spent last year show that reduction, and I'm pretty confident we're already seeing that this year. Signing invoices, knowing what we're spending. So, yeah, we went from an actual 40 and down to a budgeted 42,000, about flat. So there's the 4,000 that we estimated.
Yeah, I think it's just good to call that out because yes, we're planning to save some on certain equipment and there's others that are getting old and so you don't always see
Yeah.
it in the line item. And so it's good to kind of, we did pull out some savings for some specific equipment, but also some other equipment's getting old and going to require more repairs. So.
Yeah, and there'll be years and years of there's also some reduction in the line item GL 6110. That's all tied to irrigation costs each year on parts. We'll be under warranty for 1 to 3 years on some components. So our savings will also be there from some capital items. And we've had this happen before, like when we've gone through and replaced maintenance trucks, we've seen in some cases much lower years from costs of modernizing the fleet and dealing with vehicles that aren't 20 years old. So
just quick for you, Jacob. Good example is the 2020 budget.
I can't hear you, Bruce. I'm not sure if anybody else can.
Nobody hear me?
No.
Maybe that's good. Oh, you heard that, didn't you?
There you go. I heard that.
Okay. No, I'm just going to point out, if you look at the difference, 2019 to 2020, you see we went down about $1,000. That was in part replacing a truck.
So, yeah, we definitely, when we replace stuff on a capital replacements, whether we are doing so in part to achieve some cost reduction in the maintenance going forward over the life of the product. Any others? All right.
All right, should we move on? I think we're on to Bruce now.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be pretty easy towards flat budget. Only 2 changes that are anything significant. One is in salaries. It jumped up about.
Can you speak up?
Page 30.
31, I think. 30, 31.
Maintenance starts on 30.
Bruce, you might want to check your audio. I'm not sure if you guys, I'm not catching that audio very well.
It's breaking up, Bruce.
See what I can do here.
Actually, and I'll just go ahead and set the stage for Bruce too on this. So basically, like he said, the only real changes to maintenance have been for the payroll changes. So like, for example, under the 2020 budget, the one thing that I'll say that I'll point out is you see that budgeted WTB maintenance 1 FTE for one position, 50,671 in 2020. So obviously in 2021, that's gone. So like in a sense, those numbers are being absorbed into the salaries and payroll taxes and payroll benefits in 2021. And some of this position also, some of these hours is also being spent on roads. So it won't entirely be in here in a sense.
That's why the salary went up to 232 for 2021 budget because
Yep,
they
right.
took that 50.
Yeah. So the 50 has been zeroed out for 2021, and all of those hours have been kicked up, into salaries, payroll taxes, payroll benefits. And some of those hours are also in CVC roads and stuff like that, so as well.
So this is that full-time employee, has that been already hired? Or is this something we're requesting?
No, this has already been taken care of in 2020. Yeah,
Okay.
so it's all inclusive as
Because I
well.
know they want to put a freeze. I mean, as far as
Yeah,
there's
just-
some talk about putting freezes on
Yeah,
highways. so-
there are no there are no additional positions added in the 2021 budget at all,
Okay,
with the exception of, which has already been done in 2020 with Andrea moving 90% of her time into marina and 10% in rec.
right. We could talk about that in the marina.
Yeah, but other than that, no other positions have been added for 2021.
Just to kind of jump in, no position was either added in 2020. What we did is we took a maintenance person that was working under a capital project for 6 months and moved them over to operations.
Okay.
So the only other change, Joel, if you want to jump in here, that's great, would be on page 32. And budget supplies. Over there, you'll find we dropped out 100% on supplies and maintenance, one FTE.
Yeah, so basically what's going on with that is that was budgeted for back in 2019 for the year 2020. In 2020, this position has already been taken on. So this cost has already been basically realized, and there's no need to realize it again in 2021. So it's been flushed out in a sense in 2021.
Did we move the weather respond to another category, Bruce? Because I don't see anything for 2021. Are we not?
Sorry.
Item 6447. Is that moved to
don't-
a different?
Yeah, we don't budget for this position.
Oh,
This
okay.
position is added, like ad hoc as needed in a sense during a weather related situation. That's why you don't see anything in 2020 or 2021, just actual expenses.
So you don't budget for on line 6447 either, too.
That's right. Yeah, we do not.
Any other questions?
So maybe this is a discussion item and not a budget item. I don't know for the projected stuff for the year. I would say that projected column is just totally useless if it's being computer generated. It's a meaningless number for me. And I would hope that somehow you guys could generate an actual forecast that says, yeah, this is what our projected expenses are going to be for the year, not some computer generated one based on some algorithm that doesn't make sense. So I have a really hard time looking at, I mean, this is for everybody. Not you, I'm not picking on you, Bruce, but this is really for everybody. I just don't understand why we don't have a better number for a forecast for 2020.
I'll answer that question. And this is what it comes down to in terms of, of course, I've already explained how the 2020 projected column works. But so the thing is that projected column, like some of these expenses that come in here that are budgeted for, if they came in precisely 1/12 every single month, that'd be a totally different story. But some of these expenses don't do that. Some of these expenses could be front loaded or back loaded or whatever. And so the most valuable thing for you to look at would be the 2019 actuals and like 2018 actuals, and then compare that to the 2020 budget or 2021 budget. That's what I would do. Is this 2020 projected?
I understand that, and that's obviously I wasn't doing that until you made that clarification. What I don't understand is why we don't do an actual forecast as opposed to a computer generated forecast. I have never been around. This is an age-old problem with this organization, and as far as I'm concerned, I have never been part of an organization that doesn't do an actual forecast of expenses for the remainder of the year.
Yeah, but that's because, like I said, you can't do that mathematically unless you know for a fact that 1/12.
I'm not asking you to do it mathematically, Joel. I'm asking you to go through each line item and have the managers go through each line item and actually look at what they've expended and what they expect to expend for the rest of the year and create an actual forecast, a literal forecast, not some computer generated one. I don't understand why we can't do that in this process.
Yeah, but like I said, unless an expense comes in 1/12 every single month, you're not going, like some expenses could come in, like I said, front loaded or back loaded. That's why the most important thing is to look at, gee, what happened like the end of 2018, what happened at the end of 2019, and then look at what you budgeted for 2020 and 2021. That's what I would do. The other way will take, I think, a lot of time and won't be as efficient as you think to come up with all the, like you see how many GL line items you have per department on here?
I have never been in, I'll say it again, Joel. I have never been around an organization, and I've worked for very large organizations. I have never been around an organization where, as a senior manager, I was not required to do exactly what I'm asking for. To go line item by line item, figure out what I had already spent for the year, and to project what I was going to spend for the rest of the year. Not by doing some 1/12, but by actual projections, knowing that I've already spent $500 on something that earlier in the year, and I'm not going to spend any more in this category, or that I've spent $10,000 on something and I know I'm going to spend another $25,000. And so this is what I think we asked for, or it's what I asked for, and either the last finance meeting or the previous finance meeting, is I want to know what we are expecting to the impact of no dues collected in April, of the expenses that were saved because we had furloughed some people or had people working from home. I want to know what the impact of that is. This is a very different year. And yeah, it's going to take some effort to do that. But I'd like to know what the heck that is, and so that we know what the worst case scenarios are. I think at this point, we don't know what it's going to be, because 2019 is a point in time, and 2020 is very different. And is there any impact that we're having in 2020 because of COVID-19 or some other thing that's going to have an impact into 2021? So I find this very frustrating.
True, but I will say that 2020, as you just stated out, is a very unique year. 2021 is a totally different year. So 2021 and 2020 will be two different years in terms of forecasting.
Yes, and we're going to have a discussion next Wednesday about a resolution that a board member put forth about spending and hiring freeze. And we're not going to know what our situation is unless you do exactly what I just said.
I think the most efficient thing to do is to look at a full year's worth of information, like from 2019 to 2018, and to compare those years. That is the most efficient thing you can do on a yearly basis. Unless maybe you have produced all sorts of budgets that I don't know about and you have some better way to do it, if that's the case.
So I think we've got a couple different things going here, and I understand what you're saying, Penny, that we're dealing with some very different things this year, and we're going to have some discussions next week that go over that. And the idea of a forecast has been talked a lot, but it's a whole organization thing. It's a whole organization thing that we'll have to get into. So if we could keep this moving towards the budget and continue to have that conversation about the forecast, so that we can let these managers get through their discussions. But it's a little bit of an organizational shift to move to doing a forecast in the way that you're talking about, which I'm not opposed to doing, but I think it's a little bit bigger of a question.
Yeah, and actually, Karen, because you just brought up a good point that that I need to tell Penny is which there's a little disconnect between her and me in this, in terms of like, I think basically what Penny was getting at in terms of like producing like a forecast for like 2020 in terms of where we are so far, in terms of where we believe we'll be at the end of the year, kind of even in a sense outside of the budget year. And that, yes, with Penny, I completely agree. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing, which you will be seeing as well.
Because that could generate some different questions as far as the budget is concerned. So
Sure.
I'm just,
Yeah,
that's why I'm bringing it up in this budget process, not just in
yeah.
from the other thing. So
Yeah, I'd say, Penny, I apologize. I was so locked in on just the budget process itself, looking at these numbers. Like, so now I'm kind of thinking about a little different process in terms of we're going to be doing precisely actually what you brought up in terms of the 2020 numbers.
okay. That'll be
Penny?
helpful. Got it. Thank you.
Before we move on, were there specific, are there specific concerns you have about what's going on in 2020 that would impact 2021 that we can answer now? I mean, I know there's lots of questions about it, but did you have anything that you specifically wanted to address that you think changes in 2020's forecast would impact 2021?
Well, how did it go for people working from home? Do we need people in the office all the time? Does that change anything? Does that change our thinking at all? Does it change our thinking if we have somebody working from home relative to FTEs? Is there anything different from that perspective? It's just, I'm trying to think a little bit out of the box here around, we've had this disruptive event. And I think there are lots of organizations all over this country and all over this planet that are going through and looking at, how are we going to run our business next year, given the fact that there's a fair probability that we're going to be dealing with COVID-19 for a while longer, number one. But number two is, did we learn anything about how we do our business where we think we should be doing it differently going forward from here? So I don't have a specific area other than that, but it's a question about what did we learn? What have we learned from these last 2 months or 3 months? And how does that impact our thinking going forward?
Karen, I have some perspective on that. I'm with the task force for business reopening with the health department in Whatcom County, if you'd allow me a moment.
Sure.
Or this can wait till your next meeting. But to answer your question, Penny, that's an unknown across many sectors right now. There are very sector focused task forces on the service industry, manufacturing, in-home businesses, et cetera, are asking the same questions right now. And those business professionals don't know. So currently impacts of home work that has occurred and potential from where that's going to lead has created what's called a new normal. And that new normal is still under assessment on the impacts on those businesses, bottom line, new work strategies, telecommuting, et cetera. The goal of these task force through public health, through the state, is to capture that and to assist businesses with answering those questions. That process has just started right now, and it is going to continue for at least several months. So your questions are on everybody's mind, but there are no pat answers through a lot of broad spectrum analysis that is going on. I hope that's somewhat helpful on where this is at. It's still very much unknown. Phase 2 currently is in effect for reopening the economy. However, many businesses may choose not to open up under phase 2 for a variety of reasons. They've found efficiencies at working remotely that preclude having a brick and mortar office, for example. So those things are occurring, like I said, but it's on a huge level, and the Chamber of Commerce right now are working with industries to try to answer those.
Thanks, Norm.
Penny, I think you bring up a really good point, that after this or during this, we're really asking ourselves, what have we learned? What can we do better from this, and make sure that we are adapting and, you know, not just going back to how things were, but a new normal and doing it better. I think that's a really good point to bring up. Were you done, Bruce, or did we cut you off?
Yeah, there's no more questions. I think we're going to facilities next. And both Jacob and I share that one. So Jake, I'll let you take over. Hello, Jake.
On facilities?
There we go. Sorry, I was muted. So facilities covers, well, for those that have been on the finance committee a while, facilities covers our buildings across the properties and the cleaning and facility specific tasks tied to that and their costs for salaries. Not a lot of changes there other than in the salaries and benefits section. There is some changes due to the maintenance one, FTE supplies, and what else going down here? I'm thinking those were the only two. Oh, and then there was some for costs of permitting.
Bottom of page 21.
Yeah.
Zeroed out that, again, that was a response from having moved to a one full FTE.
Right. 21. Oh yeah, 20, yeah, 21, 22, 23. Any questions as far as facilities for Bruce and I?
I have a question on page 23. You have listed for 2020, it was budget for IT support for 5125. What exactly is that for the facility? Is that for any particular building, or because that's also budget for 2021?
I believe that goes to support on the well, for the Wi-Fi in different buildings and security cameras. I don't know, Bruce, is that your understanding?
Park and rec security, or is that for the maintenance?
That's not for new items. That's just for the maintenance of it. I believe that's going to cover things like the phones. I want to say it does cover the cameras. And
in some cases, the cameras run on a broadband signal across the entire property, whether it be at the main,
So is this
facility or admin or what have you.
2018 to do, because there was nothing budgeted in 2019 or anything. Just a new priority.
Well, 2018 actual was there.
Nothing else for the previous year.
Yeah, I don't know that I presented that in 18 going forward. So it was probably tied into individual departments throughout Sudden Valley. So if it were cameras at the admin or the clubhouse administration, restaurant building, they might have been tied into that cost somehow. Same with, Marina or Area Z or what have you.
Right, because each of the department, I noticed they have that too. So is it already split it? And then this is for which facility then? It doesn't really, because Marina
the facilities budget encompasses all of the facilities. Now, if there's communication costs for other departments in buildings that might be phone and internet, for example, but this would be tied to building specific activities like I told you, I believe, card readers or security camera systems. I can get back to you with definite information on that GL detail though.
Yeah, because it says contracted professional service, which means we're paying someone to do this for us. Is that what I'm reading that correct?
You're talking about GL 5125 on page 23?
Page 23, 5125, yes, IT support and service.
Yeah, it's under contracted and professional services. I don't know for sure that this is a contract a signed contract with someone, but it is a service. And like I said, I can check into and get back to you tomorrow, but I'm pretty sure that's tied to the security and entrance systems for the buildings across Sudden Valley as a whole.
Okay, just
But
wondering.
I'll get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? All right. Are we at the marina now? I think so. Maddie, you're up.
Okay, I'm Maddie. I'm the recreation manager. And this is the first year that the marina is under the recreation department. That started about March 1st this year. So it's a brand new thing for rec. So for 2021, we're budgeting $120,080 in income. Just to give some perspective about the marina, we have 88 wet slips and 165 dry slips. It's open 7 days a week, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And we're also open to the public since we are technically a nonprofit corporation. So we do allow the public to launch from our ramp for a fee. The biggest difference you'll see here will be in payroll. Previously, there was no like Sudden Valley manager who's been assigned to directly manage the marina in the past. And we didn't have any like staff members really to manage the day-to-day operation. So we transitioned our member services person, Andrea Herrig, to become an assistant marina manager. And so she does all of the day-to-day management down there, renewals, helping people get access cards, launching their boats, that kind of thing. And then I'm taking care of some of the bigger picture stuff like capital planning, budgeting, obviously. And so that's where you see that big difference in payroll. But except for that, I mean, things are pretty much normal down there.
So I just have to say, this isn't a budget question, but I was down there last weekend and card didn't work, and having Andrea down there to be able to, you know, just help with things there. I wasn't the only one. There was a line of like 2 or 3 of us to get into the office. So it's been extremely helpful to have someone down there to be able to take care of issues when they arise, rather than having to wait till a Monday morning to go into the admin office and get it taken care of. Or I think that sometimes security would come down, but anyway, she was able to just handle everything right there because she had all the information, and it was extremely helpful and a good development. So thanks
Just to
for
give
doing
some
that.
context, Andrea is always kind of taking care of the day-to-day and the renewal things, but she's really tied to that front desk since it was partially a front desk position, member services. So being able to remove her from that front desk has been extremely helpful, and to have her down there on the weekends when most people are off work and wanting to use the facility has been great. She works Wednesday through Sunday from 10 to 6 down at that marina office. And we've been putting in a lot of effort into trying improve the facility down there.
Yeah, it's great. I can see the improvement.
Maddie, I have a question. When you guys did the 2020 budget, did you guys take into consideration, or did you know about the 10% increase on the slips? Did you take that into consideration when you did that budget, or?
The 2020 should have that 10% increase in there, which is why we're estimating the same income for 2021.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, because the 2019 actual was actually a lot higher than what was budgeted. So I didn't.
Yeah, and that can be dependent because, like I said, we get the public who uses our launch sometimes. We do charge them to launch, but that's a really hard thing to kind of predict each year. How many members from outside of Sudden Valley are going to come and, you know, try to launch at our facility? And in the past, I think maybe not all of our slips have been filled or that kind of thing, but starting last year, they were filled. All of our wet slips were filled. Almost all of our dry slips were filled. We're getting extremely busy, and we're actually working on creating new dry slip spots because the demand is so high. So I do think that's actually we'll start to see more income come in.
So are you concerned about the situation that this year has caused to lose any of those slips, or?
No, we still have an extremely high demand for use of those slips, and we've been working with our Canadian customers in order to keep them here, because we have about 20 Marina members who are Canadian based. So what we did for them is, instead of saying, sorry, you can't come down, you know, we're going to give your slip away, we created a holding agreement for them, so that if you pay $100, which pretty much just covers our time, we will sublease that space to someone on our waiting list. And so we have that spot filled. It's being used by someone who has a boat and is able to access that slip. And then those Canadian members will be able to come back next year, or when the border opens. So we're trying really hard to keep everything filled.
Do you not have an item number for the kayak, or is that under a different category?
I think.
Because I don't see any kayak fees, because I know you.
Yeah, I don't see that under Marina. Joel, do you know where that is in the budget?
I am not entirely certain where that's coded in. I would have to, I'll ask Gil about that.
Because it would go under the Marina, correct?
I believe that is under dry slip.
Yeah, I agree with Joe. I believe that's where it's gone, but we'll have to check.
Oh, really? Okay.
Are there any possibility of expanding that? Because I've heard some community members wanting to rent and was not able to find spots.
Yeah, so we actually added 2 more racks this year, one at the Marina, and then one is being installed down at AM or PM, I forget which one. But we slowly are starting to add more and more racks, because like you said, we're starting to see more people ask about renting them.
That's it for me.
So Maddie, I know you're new to managing this budget, but do you have any concerns with it? I mean, you talked a little bit about how there might be some opportunity for additional revenue maybe next year that's not in this budget if you're able to add the dry slips. Is there any other than the whole capital side of it, but operationally, are you comfortable with this budget, or do you have concerns about it, or how are you feeling?
I think that it's pretty accurate. The only thing that I would point out is we really do need to have money set aside for serious maintenance of our facility. We've seen some damage to our wet slips because of extreme weather this past winter that was like hitting the docks. So we need to have that maintenance money in there in order to like maintain our slips, the floating docks out there. So I think we have a good amount set aside for that. And we've been working with Lakeside Marine on getting more numbers about like yearly maintenance numbers. And then like if we were ever wanting to replace or do a significant repair of those slips, what that would cost. That goes more into capital, but I'm feeling pretty good about it. I think it's right on track, and it's great that we have someone down there who's able to take a look at what's going on more. And we're going to be doing more research over the winter about how other marinas operate, maybe how we could be charging differently, and reaching out to some other companies out there.
That's good. Thanks. Any others?
Are we answering questions from the membership? Because there was a question.
No, these are working meetings, so we're not doing member comments. Although I suppose we could just answer. So does the general public that launched from the marina need to show proof of insurance to launch? Maddie, do you know? I mean, I believe they need the whole everything, but I'm not sure.
I think that is right. I know we definitely check AIS, but what we do is we actually issue them an access card like you would have for the gym or, for the dock. And I'm pretty sure we would check their insurance, and then we check their AIS permit too.
So they would need all the same documentation that a person leasing a slip would need then.
I believe so, but I can follow up with Andrea on that.
I can answer that because, as you know, she was in our office for the last 4.5 years. She does, in order to be issued an assets card, you have to have proof of registration. Insurance is not required, but people do provide it. But registration and AIS certification is required before you get an access card, no matter who you are.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else? Any follow-up comments?
Well, I just want to say good job on the budget. It's encouraging to see no dues increase, and it sounds like you're able to operate Sudden Valley in the same manner that we did this year. So it's very encouraging. So good work, team.
I agree, Colin. Thanks for bringing that up. That's really good. And Lori, I'm glad to see that we have another member of the finance committee now.
She's so needy.
Thanks. Yeah, so I think this is good. So are we ready to close for the night?
Well,
Are you guys ready?
It's 10 minutes of 8. I mean, I was here for the marathon.
I thought it would be 3 hours. I was.
Well, we still have tomorrow night and then next Wednesday. So tomorrow night is, just to give everyone the heads up, it's in your binder, but we've got Parks and Rec again, not again, but Maddie again, and then common costs, operations, accounting, security, and then we'll go over capital and the roads fund. So we'll have some time to go into more detail and that stuff. If I had to guess, I would guess that tomorrow's meeting may be longer than tonight. So power up, eat your carbs or whatever you need to be able to last. And then following from that, we will have on the following Wednesday, it'll be a regular it's called a special finance committee meeting, but we'll do regular business plus be talking about this budget and hopefully have our recommendations about the budget to then send to the board.
Is there anything that staff needs from the finance committee?
Besides shorter discussions. Penny's not laughing.
I think I'm good.
I'm taking it personal, Colin.
Not personal.
Look at all my notes. I'm taking notes. It's been 2 hours, so I don't make sure I had all my questions.
Good job.
Need anything from finance?
Do you need anything? You guys, any direction, I don't know.
No, I don't.
The only thing if any of the members have questions that they want to shoot emails or calls to me in the interim, feel free to buzz me or email me. Be happy to dig into something, into some GL detail or something if anybody has any questions.
I've said this a lot of times, and I'm gonna say it again, that I know it was a joke calling about shorter discussions, but I appreciate asking the questions and then you guys taking your time to come here, because I feel like that's how the best decisions are made, is when people understand the business a little bit better. We'll never understand it as much as you guys do in the day-to-day, but I really appreciate you coming and talking to us about it, because I think it just helps much better when we're in, positions where we're making decisions, that we understand a little bit better what's going on with the day-to-day. So thank you guys, managers, for coming, and thank you, Finance Committee, for asking those questions and for trying to understand and, we're all trying to make it better and run smoother. And so thanks, guys, for your time, and I'll see you again tomorrow, I guess.
Happy to do it.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Peace out.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Ciao.